Bacon is simply too delicious to ever let it go to waste, except, of course, when it's filled with copious amounts of disease-causing bacteria and tiny foreign objects that'll crack your teeth. On these occasions, safety had to trump savory. Breakfast sandwiches are a go-to for many hungry Americans. In fact, research from Next Bite indicates that when it comes to the first meal of the day, around 45% of people in the US say that a sandwich is one of their favorite breakfast food items. But alas, sometimes things can go wrong with the classic. In April 2025, Utah-based manufacturer Hearthside Food Solutions had to issue a recall for more than 489,000 pounds of breakfast sandwiches because they contained undeclared sesame, a common allergen. Two types of prepared sandwiches were implicated in the recall, and both were sold under the Lethierry's brand. The issue was linked to the French toast used in the bacon and sausage sandwiches, which contained sesame flour, but that was not listed in the ingredients. At the time of the recall, the sandwiches had already been sent to Army and Air Force exchange services across the country. Fortunately, despite the fact that sesame is among the 9 most common allergens in the US, no reactions were reported as a result of the labeling error. Sesame is far from the only allergen that can sneak its way into bacon products. In 2023, Colorado-based manufacturer Custom Made Meals had to recall more than 1,300 pounds of bacon-wrapped chicken breasts because they contained undeclared milk. As you can surely guess, this means that they were a health hazard to anyone with an allergy to cow's milk. Research suggests that almost 2% of American children suffer from a milk allergy.
Milk was a bad choice.
In this instance, the problem was, once again, a labeling mix-up. Specifically, bacon-wrapped barbecue-seasoned chicken grillers had been packaged with the wrong ingredient list. Luckily, nobody reported any allergic reactions, even though the grillers had already been sent to retailers in several states. Bacon bits are often used in everything from creamy pasta dishes to hearty soups. But one thing you definitely don't want to discover in your bacon-based dinner is a piece of metal. Unfortunately, that's what happened to one person after purchasing a bacon topping produced by the meat giant Smithfield. After they sent a complaint to the company, Smithfield was forced to recall more than 185,600 pounds of bacon topping that had already been sent to retailers nationwide. Luckily, nobody was injured by any metal pieces, which may have found their way into the product from broken machinery in the factory where it was produced. If a person accidentally bites down on a piece of metal, they could unsurprisingly end up with mouth or teeth injuries. And if they swallow it, it might just lead to some internal cuts. In an abundance of caution, the Food Safety and Inspection Service urged anyone who had already bought any of the bacon products listed in the recall not to consume them. Instead, they were encouraged to throw them out or return them to the store for a refund. What's another thing you don't want in your favorite bacon-based product, or any food for that matter? Small rocks. Quite frankly, rocks of any size aren't welcome at breakfast, though we can probably safely assume that boulders aren't sneaking their way in there. Unfortunately, in 2019, 3 El Monterey customers were not spared from this misfortune. Yes, it's true, after they bought egg, potato, bacon, and cheese sauce breakfast wraps, they were surprised to discover small rocks inside. One person even reported a potential injury. As a result, the manufacturer of the wraps, Ruiz Foods, recalled more than 246,000 pounds from shelves across the U.S. It wasn't known exactly how the small rocks found their way into the breakfast wraps, but it could have been due to contamination in the factory where they were produced. As you might imagine, accidentally eating a small rock could cause serious harm. It's a choking hazard for one thing, and it could also result in dental, mouth, or internal injuries. Fortunately, though, there were no further reports of any injuries associated with these wraps.
I'm just trying to spit out some of these rocks from my breakfast wrap this morning.
Scallops are a popular seafood that can be prepared in many ways, from Alfredo pasta to frutti di mare, or wrapped in bacon, but hopefully they're not also wrapped in undeclared allergens. However, this unfortunate reality came to pass when the New York-based brand Le Châteaux De France sent more than 4,200 pounds of bacon-wrapped scallops to institutional locations in New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Florida, and Pennsylvania that contained undeclared milk, which is one of the top 9 allergens in the U.S. The problem was discovered during an FSIS food safety assessment, which then prompted the recall. Fortunately, though, there were no confirmed allergic reactions to the scallops. However, anyone who was concerned was urged to not eat any of them. Nobody wants a foreign object in their food, but unfortunately it does occasionally happen, and it's not just metal and rocks. In fact, plastic fragments are even more frequent intruders, to the point that they're the most common foreign object that people find in their food. This often happens during the manufacturing process, and it was the cause of a McCain Foods recall in 2016. Specifically, the brand was forced to pull more than 25,200 pounds of its early risers potato, egg, cheese, and bacon fritters. These products are made for schools, and they were recalled from food service distributors in 12 states after a complaint from a consumer who had discovered a piece of plastic inside one of the fritters. Obviously, you don't want plastic fragments going into your body, as it can result in problems like choking and cuts. Thankfully, though, nobody reported any injuries.
Some products may be adulterated, in other words, spoiled.
Turkey bacon is often considered to be a healthier alternative to the pork variety, but it still comes with its own set of risks. For example, it's made with potentially harmful preservatives, and it also contains sodium and cholesterol. And like so many other foods, sometimes there are turkey bacon recalls. Indeed, in 2015, food giant Kraft Heinz had to recall more than 2 million pounds of Oscar Mayer turkey bacon over fears that they could spoil before the expiration date. At the time of the recall, the products had already been sent across the U.S. as well as to retailers in the Bahamas and St. Martin. The problem was discovered by consumers who realized that the bacon had in fact spoiled before the best before date. Eating spoiled meat comes with a higher risk of foodborne illness, and some people reportedly did get sick in this instance. Soy allergies are more common in children, although they can affect adults as well. In rare cases, it can get so bad that products with soy could result in life-threatening anaphylaxis. That's why in 2015, the Wilmington, Ohio-based L&L Foods had to recall more than 30,600 pounds of bacon bits from manufacturers in Ohio and North Carolina. They'd been contaminated with soy lecithin, which is a food additive made from soy, but the allergen was not declared on the packaging. The uncured bacon bits were supposed to be used in salad kit products. The packaging error was fortunately discovered during an FSIS inspection, and there were no reports of any allergic reactions. Not all packaging errors are associated with allergens. In 2014, the Chicago-based DaBecca Natural Foods had to recall more than 3,400 pounds of its sliced uncured apple-smoked bacon from institutional distributors in California and Texas. This was because they were shipped out in packaging that did not have the USDA mark of inspection on the label. The purpose of the USDA mark of inspection is to assure consumers that the products they're consuming have been thoroughly inspected and are safe to eat. Thus, it should always be easy to find on-product packaging. If food hasn't been appropriately inspected, then there's no guarantee that it was produced in a safe, hygienic facility. The packaging error was discovered during an FSIS inspection of the DaBecca facility, and there were no reports of any health issues associated with the misbranded products. Sodium nitrite is a common food preservative that's often found in meat products. It's used to help the food last longer and reduce the growth of bacteria that can cause foodborne illness. And when used in bacon, it can also help to enhance taste and color. It's not without risks, though, as it's also associated with an increased risk of cancer and heart disease. So it's vital that foods with sodium nitrite are labeled accurately so that consumers can make informed decisions. But in 2014, Abe's Finest Meats was forced to recall more than 80,000 pounds of hickory-smoked sliced bacon because sodium nitrite was not listed on the packaging when it should have been. At the time of the recall, the products had already been sent to distributors in Florida and Georgia. Fortunately, though, there were no consumer health complaints associated with the recall. In 2014, Michigan company Dearborn Sausage had to issue a recall after a routine assessment conducted by the FSIS after a packaging error resulted in Randy's slab bacon being sold with the wrong labeling. This meant that soy wasn't declared on the packaging, thereby resulting in a recall of more than 3,600 pounds. Fortunately, the issue was only related to one retailer, which was selling the same product as both slab bacon and sliced bacon. The sliced version had the wrong label, so it didn't list hydrolyzed soy protein, which is a common food additive derived from soybeans. There were no reports of illness or allergic reactions associated with the mislabeled bacon, but anyone who was concerned about that possibility was urged to contact their healthcare provider. The Food Safety and Inspection Service exists to keep the American food system as safe as possible. Every facility that processes animal products needs to be inspected to ensure that regulations are followed properly and that everything is produced in clean, hygienic environments. But sometimes things slip through the cracks. This is what happened in 2014 when the New York company Transatlantic Foods shipped more than 220,000 pounds of meat products, including uncured bacon, to retailers across the country without the appropriate inspections taking place. After receiving an anonymous tip, the FSIS discovered that Transatlantic Foods was manufacturing products in a facility that didn't have an official grant of inspection. This means that consumers were at risk of potentially eating meat produced in an unsafe environment. So a recall was issued, and fortunately there were no reports of illness associated with the uninspected products. There are 3 things you always want between the buns in a bacon cheeseburger: bacon, beef, and cheese. One thing you certainly don't want is a piece of a gasket. But this is exactly what happened to one person after opening up a pack of Sam's Choice Fireside Gourmet Angus beef patties with bacon and aged cheddar. The patties had been produced by the Wisconsin-based Kenosha Beef International, and the gasket piece likely broke off during manufacturing and embedded itself in the product.
I'm gonna blow a gasket or something.
Fortunately, the consumer didn't experience any injuries as a result of the contamination, and there were no reports of anyone else finding any foreign objects. However, to be on the safe side, a recall was issued for more than 37,600 pounds of bacon cheeseburgers, which had already been shipped to 7 different states. In 2011, routine testing at a Canadian facility operated by a company called Aliments Prince discovered Listeria, a harmful foodborne bacteria. Unfortunately, bacon products produced at this facility had already been shipped to distribution centers in the U.S. The affected products were supposed to be sent on to food service locations, but the discovery resulted in a recall of more than 380,000 pounds of bacon products. Listeria bacteria can lead to an illness called listeriosis, which can be life-threatening for vulnerable individuals, particularly the elderly and the very young. But fortunately, in this case, there were no reports of any health problems.